Hello, this is the Captain Paxo, welcoming you to a video on my thoughts on the proposed changes for Nyx in Devstream 118. This is coming from someone who has played quite a bit of Nyx. I have about 1,100 hours total of time played on Warframe, going by the in-game statistics, and about 250 of those hours have been spent playing Nyx. It's not to say that my opinion is the only one that matters, or you shouldn't listen to anybody else, or anything like that. This is just me stating that I have experience with this Warframe, a lot of experience with this Warframe. It's my favourite frame. So, I know what makes her good currently, as much as that's hard to imagine how she is currently good. But I also have some ideas as to how she should be buffed. That's not this video though, this video is Devstream 118, so I'm going to go through each of the proposed changes and talk about them. Some of them are pretty good, some of them not so much. So let's start off with the passive. They're changing her passive, and my immediate question is, what's wrong with her current passive? Her current passive gives her a chance to disarm enemies when enemies get affected by your abilities. So when you hit them with mind control, or rather when the mind control effect ends, they have a chance to be disarmed. When they get hit by any one of the 7 psychic bolts that she throws out, it has a chance to disarm. When you fire off chaos, they have a chance to be disarmed. And even when you knock down enemies with an absorb, they have a chance to get disarmed. That's really powerful. You've just neutered an enemy. A heavy gunner or a bombard, a napalm, a nox, a tech, even a sniper or a Detron crewman. You've just taken their weapon away. That's their most powerful form of offense. You've essentially just turned them into a watermelon at that point. Something that's going to soak up some damage but can't really do anything back. That's incredibly powerful, but they're taking that away and they're giving her a accuracy debuff. It's not clear if it's just an aura, so an area around Nyx, or if it's only enemies that target Nyx get that accuracy debuff, or if it's all allies within the mission get that debuff effect on all the enemies. That's completely unclear. It would be nice if all enemies got that accuracy debuff, but that might be a little bit overpowered. Sure, it helps us survive, but again, I just feel like that ability to disarm enemies is a little bit more powerful because enemies still have a chance to hit you, whereas when they're disarmed, all they can hit you with is with a sheave or a prover, it really doesn't do that much damage. But we'll talk about her passive a little bit later because I think there's a way to implement her current passive while still having the proposed passive. So let's move on to mind control. They're thinking of creating a build-up time similar to Frost's Snow Globe or Rhino's Iron Skin, where upon activation there is a time at which all damage absorbed is converted into, well, in the case of Snow Globe and Iron Skin, it's converted into health for that thing. But in terms of the mind controlled unit, it's going to convert it into damage, so it's going to increase the amount of damage that that unit can dish out. This could make mind control really powerful. It could also not really be very good at all, and it could also be blatantly overpowered. I don't think we're going to know until we get our hands on it. We already have the Mind Freak augment, which gives 500% damage output, and that didn't do anything to help mind control, right? You slap that on a strength build on Nyx, and it was terrible. You have 2 level 100 heavy gunners going at each other and you're sitting there for 30 seconds. You can go make a sandwich before they kill each other, It's ridiculous. So maybe this is the damage output that it needs. And maybe I'm a bit weird, but I never saw mind control as a damage ability. It's not really, to me, it's not an ability that you use for damage. It's an ability you use for utility. See that ancient healer? That's now mine. See that Osprey, the shield one? That's now mine. Or maybe you want the Bombard because it can apply blast procs and knock enemies down around it. Or you want that Arctic Xmas because you can hide in its snow globe. Stuff like that. Maybe this, I don't know, maybe this could increase its usability. Maybe it could make it really, really powerful. But my thoughts on increasing the damage output that mind control deals is that it's either going to be not enough damage to be worth it, or it's going to be blatantly overpowered. You know, they're going to buff it a little bit, and it's not quite enough. A little bit more, it's still not quite enough. And then they buff it one last time, and it's like, whoa, that's overpowered. That's what I see it as going to be. You know, Mind Freak wasn't enough, so now they're going to implement this absorb time, and now it's just going to be insane, because you're going to unload, like, a Soma Prime or a Dread or a Comb or something like that into their face at point blank, and they're just going to get so much absurd damage that they're just going to mow through all the enemies, and everyone's going to be like, this is ridiculous. Who knows, maybe it'll become the new Resonating Quake. I highly doubt that, because the AI is stupid as shit, both without mind control and with mind control. That's always been mind control's major weaknesses. The AI is just kind of stupid. So we won't know if this is actually good or not until we see it in play. As for Psychic Bolts, they're thinking of making a maybe duration-based. Duration-based was with a question mark. But they're wanting to give it some debuff effects, such as, well, essentially removing defenses is how they explained it. So removing armor, that's fantastic. Straight up damage increase, that's a really powerful buff. Any frame that has the ability to strip armor is really powerful. They also want it to be able to strip shields. Again, that's useful. Won't have to worry about shields on Corpus Crewman or Tex once it's powerful enough, that is. And they're also wanting it to slow Infested. And again, I'm thinking, that's good. That's really nice. Just be able to slow Infested. I'd like to see all of these bundled together against all factions and not just Grineer, Corpus, and Infested. I would like to see the armor strip, shield strip, and slow on all units. I think that would be a lot more powerful as opposed to just faction-based or defense-type-based. The last idea that they proposed for Psychic Bolts, which really had me confused at best, was causing Ancients to lose their auras. So Ancient Healers lose their healing aura, Disruptors lose their disruption aura, and I'm thinking, you can just do that with Chaos though. Why would you ever use Psychic Bolts over Chaos? Because Psychic Bolts, it homes, it chooses its own target. You can't point at an enemy and go, that one, hit that one. It decides what it wants to hit, and it usually hits whatever's closest. Right? So if there's a bunch of Infested around, which they usually are, it's going to go for them, and it's probably going to ignore the healer or the disruptor. So your best option is just to Chaos, because that'll stop it from healing, it'll stop it from giving the disruption aura, and during the time that it's stunned from the Chaos, you can blast them in the face if you don't want them to stick around, you know? Psychic Bolts has always had this problem of, why would you use Psychic Bolts when you have Chaos? And this is one of those things. Is sort of, why would I ever use Psychic Bolts? I can't control it. It decides what it wants to hit. But also, just to play devil's advocate, Psychic Bolts has a radiation proc on it. If you hit an Ancient Healer with a radiation proc, they lose their aura, because they're not healing their allies, because they no longer classify other Infested as an ally, because they're radiation procced, right? So this buff is completely pointless. I mean, sure, it doesn't really hurt the ability, but it's not necessary in any way, shape, or form. I don't see why they would want to add this, you know? But I mentioned earlier that we were going to talk about her passive in Psychic Bolts. As someone who plays a lot of Nyx, I tend to use Psychic Bolts to disarm enemies, because you fire off about 6 or 7 projectiles. Each one of them has a chance to disarm your enemy, and you can spam it, because it's an ability that you don't have to activate and then reactivate. Chaos, you can only affect an enemy once for the duration of that ability. Mind Control, you have to activate, deactivate, activate, deactivate. Psychic Bolts, you just spam, 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 and 7 of those projectiles come out. Each of them has a chance to disarm an enemy. That's really, really useful, you know? So maybe instead of having Ancients lose their auras, maybe give a chance that you can disarm enemies alongside the armor strip, the shield strip, and the slowing. Why not? It'd be another great debuff, and then you can still go with the new passive and keep the disarm. With Psychic Bolt's ability to radiation proc and disarm enemies, it's essentially a poor man's irradiating disarm, but having that ability on Nyx as a poor man's irradiating disarm, it's still powerful. There's still a reason to use Nyx over Loki. And that's something that I never really understood about people being like, well, why don't you just Loki? Why don't you just use Loki if you like Chaos? Well, because I like the rest of Nyx's kit, especially Absorb and Psychic Bolt's ability to disarm and go through walls and stuff. I think it just really helped the ability. But anyway, let's move on to Chaos. They're saying they want to keep Chaos the same, which I think is a little bit of a missed opportunity because there are ways to increase its power. Maybe if a Chaos unit attacks an ally, maybe they get stunned, maybe they get staggered. My initial idea for buffing Chaos was maybe making it so they have an accuracy debuff against allies, but that's Nyx's passive, or that's what it's going to be anyway. Because one of the major problems with Chaos is that they can still target allies with impunity. If there's only one Chaos unit, then they're essentially an enemy, because they've got no other targets other than you. Right? So they're going to be unloading entirely on you. They're not going to be distracted by anything else. And in that situation, they've got nothing holding them back. They've got no stun for attacking you. They've got no accuracy debuff. They've got nothing. They can just attack you free will. Right? So I was thinking something to try and neuter that. But maybe that could be in the Psychic Bolts department. And then as for Absorb, they are going to be making damage calculation changes, so maybe we'll see an increase in the damage on that. I don't expect it to be anything amazing, because trying to kill anything outside of level 40 with Absorb is generally a waste of time. I mean, you can do it. Definitely you can do it. You just have to absorb for quite a long period of time. But we'll see. Again, we don't know exactly what these damage calculations are going to be. We don't know exactly how powerful the mind control change is going to be. We just have to wait for them to come out, and then we can test them and get our hands on it and just see how absurd or not absurd they're going to be. But as for Psychic Bolts, like I said, the Ancients losing their auras is completely pointless, and I'd really like to see the ability to disarm enemies stay with Nyx. It's a very powerful ability, and obviously they want to go for this new passive, so why not move her current passive onto Psychic Bolt, since it is going to be a debuffing ability anyway. So that's it for my thoughts. I'd like you to leave your thoughts in the comments below, so thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.